Well, welcome everyone. My name is Nathan. I'm an MBT volunteer with the MBT Volunteer Community, and I'm joined here with Tom and Michael Sagansky. And I'll let y'all introduce yourselves here.
Yeah, I'm Michael Sagansky, and I'm also a part of the MBT Volunteers. And I've been, following Tom's MBT work since about 2009. And yeah, I've just been trying to give back to the community wherever I can. So here I am.
And of course, I'm Tom. I'm the author of the My Big Toe, and I appreciate very much you two volunteering to help share some of the information that we have that we think is necessary for the maturing and growing of the world into a more peaceful, kinder, gentler, more productive space, which is something that I think everybody would like to see. So that's kind of our larger goal is to kind of help all of us grow up together to the point that we can be kinder and gentler with each other and let some of our ego and fear and those other things that get in the way of our growth and of our, you know, having good relationships and good interactions with each other. See if we can't learn how to let that stuff go. And that's sort of what this is about. A lot of people find the MBT or My Big Toe cosmology to be interesting and informative and help them grow and overcome personal issues and problems and relationship difficulties. So we just like to share. And from my viewpoint, if it works, use it. If it doesn't work, just let it go. It's not about belief. Not interested in trying to get you to believe something that you don't believe, or get you to disbelieve something that you do believe. It's belief is the enemy. Belief is not what we're interested in. We're just sharing ideas, ways of interacting, ways of going about being authentic and living our own lives. And if they work for you, great. If they don't, let them alone, move on. It's not a good fit. So that's kind of where I'm coming from. This is not everybody needs to go out and buy My Big Toe. This is not an advertisement. This is just really a couple of people getting together to share some information that generally has been found to be very useful for people of all ages and all professions to help them optimize their own lives, their own happiness, their own relationships, their own sense of well-being and authenticity. So it's just a sharing moment, I guess, amongst the three of us.
Yes, and it's a perfect segue to why Michael and I wanted to talk with you today, Tom, because part of how we're volunteering is we are specifically using the tool of social media to engage with folks around exactly what you're talking about. How can we let go of belief and fear and ego? How can we make the world a more positive place? And really sharing the MBT model and our personal experiences to help really facilitate that. And so Michael and I here will be co-hosting this call together, and we'll be sharing questions with you for you to answer and our reflections around how can we use social media to make the world a better place. We hear a lot in other areas of culture how social media is a problem and there are downsides, and of course those are important to recognize. And it's here. People are interacting, and there's probably actually some really great opportunities and positive things and or at least positive potential for social
Mhm.
media. So that's what we wanted to chat with you a little bit about today. And I guess the first question to start that off would be, what would be like an MBT perspective on social media, just to start more broadly? It's a theory of everything,
Mhm.
and here we have this reality of social media. So how would you sort of briefly give an MBT perspective on social media?
Social media is one of the first and major big things that the so-called information age has delivered, to us. And of course, all the gadgets and the gizmos that it takes to support social media. There's a lot of science and engineering and design background behind all that, but that's really superfluous. What's important is what it allows people to do and how they interact. So in the past, there's been little bubbles of enlightenment pop up amongst people for, I don't know, since time was recorded, pretty much, since there were written languages that kept track of things. So if we go back, 10,000 years or 12,000 years, you'll find that there were people who really had a good understanding of the nature of reality and how things worked and how to optimize relationships. And it's not like this is brand new discoveries that we have, but these ideas would sometimes grow and a lot of people would get behind them, but they could never get out of the margins. They were always just stuck in the local margins because, it was such a isolated group of people. Communication wise, everybody was isolated. And that's been true right up until the information age. That's kind of what the information is all about. We are, for the first time in human history, breaking out of our isolation as a species. And, if you think about it, 30, 40, 50 years ago, when there was a big tsunami or earthquake or something happened someplace, and people would think about it and say, oh, wow, gee, 200,000 people killed in some place. Where is that place anyway? Is that in Asia or is that in Africa, And nobody really thought too much about it because it wasn't here. Nobody I know, just off into some place that I don't even know really where that is. And, it wasn't important. Just wasn't that important. And we just haven't shared. We haven't been connected because we've been a bunch of disparate countries, disparate tribes, different cultures around the world, all pretty much staying to ourselves in our own track and not really caring too much about each other. Well, that's the way it is. Look at a big corporation. If you work for a corporation that has 100,000 employees, well, you kind of have the sense that you're just part of such and such a division and such a branch and whatever, but you don't really mix with the whole thing. You're just one of thousands, and you don't really feel that much a part of the whole. If you work for a little company of 10 people, well, that's not the case. Everybody knows everybody, or you live in a little town, whatever. And everybody's business is everybody's business in a sense that we all care for each other. My neighbor's house, has a problem, their water pipes break and I can help. I go over and help them fix it because we're all neighbors. That's the difference between community and, I should say small community and mega community. In a mega community, we're all just individuals kind of in our own space. In the small community, we're more interactive. We're more caring within that local community. That it's all family, you see. So that's where the industrial revolution is not industrial. That's where the information revolution is taking us. It's shrinking the world. It's making humanity a family. Well, that's good in many ways. It's making humanity into a family where we care. Now there's that earthquake someplace, and you can see very up close and personal the tears in the little child's eyes who's just lost his house. Now, instead of saying, yeah, who cares, you have empathy for that person. You care about them. So you dig in your wallet and you send a little money to the Red Cross or whoever else is trying to help service that area. So we start sharing and caring about each other. You see, that is a sea state change. That is a huge change for the human race, for the way we interact, for the way we can interact with each other. Things that were never possible before are possible now. Bringing humanity together so that they can interact more peaceably and caringly. Well, it won't happen if we're this big mega, global thing and nobody really gives a damn about anybody else because we're all just playing our own game in our own little sandbox and everybody else is either irrelevant or annoying. When we all see that we're sharing the same kinds of needs and wants and problems and issues, that there's people everywhere just trying to get by, trying to find a decent life, raise children, give those children a better chance. And it's not just us, but all those people that were on the other side of the world that had that tsunami, they're struggling with that too. And then we have our struggles. And it changes an attitude of people. So that's one thing. We're starting to become, because of social media, we're starting to become a family. We're starting to become more of a species-wide communicators, as opposed just community-wide communicators. And that is just at the beginning, in the sense that we can't get to the point where we all act like brothers and sisters until we actually feel like brothers and sisters. And you can't get to that until we're family. You can't get to that until we actually get to look each other in the eyeball and see each other's tears, see each other's smiles, connect, become a part of everybody's life, and what's going on. Well, we get that now. Anything happens anywhere in the world, you hear about it within hours now, not within months or years like it used to be. You hear about it. It's personal. And if you care, if you have some empathy, then you connect with it. You wonder, what can I do? How can I share? How could I be a part of that? And if they need volunteers, well, maybe you'll pack up and go volunteer, you know. So the world has just begun in this way. I'm not saying we're there yet. I'm not saying that this is the way it is now. I'm just saying this is what we're moving toward with this concept of social media. And it's a very good thing. It will allow us to fight like a family, but it'll also allow us to love like a family. There's a lot of scrapping going on inside of families. Well, that's okay. But when it gets right down to it, we care about each other and we have empathy for each other. Now, we haven't developed all that yet. We're not family yet. We're still a bunch of disparate, cultures and things struggling with each other in many aspects. But we're headed down this path. It's part of where we're going. And this gives humanity an opportunity that it's never had before. Now, opportunity is just opportunity. We don't have to grab it. We can ignore it or we can put it off, but it's an opportunity that humanity has never had before. So yes, you have, a Buddha pops up someplace, and now you have a little bubble of enlightenment over there in the, in the Asia region, and it spreads and it grows, and eventually, many generations go by and it changes and it morphs and it becomes an organization with all the problems that have to do with organization. And it's the same with all of the major religions. They start out with somebody who has a better idea, who understands reality a little better than the people around them. And other people go, oh, that's interesting. I want to be able to grow like that. And, it grows up, but then it gets diluted and it gets polluted, and time happens, and, things start to get codified and dogmas come up. And that's always been in these little bubbles. Now it's worldwide. If there's really a new idea, a real better idea about how to live and how to be, it can spread around the world in a day or a week. Whereas before, maybe in 100 years, it would spread, around the world. By the time the 100 years are over, that idea's been polluted. Now it's got 20 branches of that idea, and they're all competing and fighting with each other, you see. So it's just different now, and that's good. But whenever you have a new big potential for positivity, well, potential's just potential. Potential doesn't come in, it's only got potential for positiveness. Potential's potential. It's got potential for change, for interaction, which means manipulation. And there's always a downside. So anything that can be used to great advantage to make things more positive can probably also be used for great advantage to make things more negative. It's just the nature of potential. You can actualize potential positively, and you can actualize potential negatively. It's what it is we do with it. Well, there'll be those of us trying to actualize the negativity because we see something in it for us, right? We can grab, we can make money, we can manipulate. You know, we can scam people. We can rich quick. We can manipulate others to be the way we want them to be, to think the way we want them to think. So suddenly there's a bunch of people that say, social media, great way to manipulate other people to get what I want, you know, and that's going to happen too. It's not that you get one without the other. You have to you get both as potential. How you actualize that potential depends on the quality of you. But at least we have the opportunity now to grow up in a big way, in a species way that we never had before. Before it was really impossible. It just wasn't going to happen. We didn't have the infrastructure to support it. Now we do. Well, we also have ways to manipulate people in ways that we never could before. You know, you can sell sand to the people in the deserts. You know, they can use their marketing skills and they lies and cheats and steals and arguments and whatever to manipulate most anyone to anything. You know, and they're good at it. And they're going to use that internet for their advantage because they're low quality people and they want to take advantage of others and they are self-centered and they want it to be their way, get what they want, which is mainly what's good for them. So we have different groups of people using this social media for different ways. And then you have the owners of social media and they have their own agenda. They want to make money. And they want to do whatever makes money. And if things don't make money, well, they're not too interested in doing those things. See, they just would like to use the concept of social media for their own advantage. So they're kind of in the group of users, you know, and that's good. We need them. We need those social media companies to put together the structures that we have with social media. We need that. But there's not too many that are creating a social media because they want to be helpful or they want to help the world, become more positive. That's not the reason that economics works in our culture. In our culture, economics works because it makes money. So there's all kinds of different forces that are pushing and pulling at social media. But the fact is, it depends on us and what we want to do with it. And we'll do all those things with it. But what's going to become dominant? What's going to, in the end, kind of lead us down a different path? And I think we'll find out that the social media will be a great benefit in general, given all of its possibilities for misuse and abuse and for generating money at whatever cost, add all that up together. And I think you're going to find that social media is really the great thing that gets delivered by digital, the digital revolution, the information revolution, that we start to become more family. We start to develop empathy and caring for each other, get to see each other as human beings, just like us over there. Yeah, you speak a different language, your skin's a different color, but it doesn't matter. Your life is just like my life. We're both struggling, trying to put a decent life together. And we start seeing the differences don't matter so much. How we're the same is much more important. It's a much bigger part of us. And all of that has never happened before in our race. Humanity's never had that big picture before, the big family picture. We don't have it yet, but we can have it now. The potential is there. And because, evolution, talk about the evolution of consciousness, consciousness is evolving toward being more helpful, more caring, toward being more positive, lower entropy. And eventually we'll get there. That is where we'll end up. But there's a lot of twists and turns and dysfunction that'll happen along the way. But eventually, that positive is what will carry the day. The positive isn't going to be buried by the negative, and then we all suffer. Maybe for a time that could be true, but that's not the long-term prognosis. Long-term, I know absolutely that the positive will triumph. The positive will win, because that's just the nature of evolution. The negative is dysfunctional. The negative is self-destructive. The negative will always tear itself apart. The positive builds. Positive grows. Positive evolves. You see, so yes, we could, as a culture, as a species, go backwards for a little bit. That's possible, but it's not that we'll go backwards for a long time. It'll always turn around. It'll always go in the right direction eventually. Fits and starts, sometimes, one step forward, two steps back, but then there'll be a run that'll be 10 steps forward. And I think that's where we're getting to now. I think we're probably getting to the point where, for the first time in our life, we can take a couple of big steps forward. And I don't think it's ever been possible before. And I'm real enthused that it's not going to be another millennia. It's only going to be another decade or two or three before we'll start seeing that. And that's because the potential's there and the infrastructure's now there. And most importantly, the will is there. If you just did a random sample of 100 people out of the, 8 billion almost that we've got here, you'd find that almost all of them would agree with this idea, and that is, we, humanity, need to do better. That we, humanity, are not optimized. That we, humanity, the way we interact with each other, the way we care and don't care about each other and so on, has a lot of room of improvement. We have to grow. We have to become more inclusive. We have to care more about each other. We have to be more helpful, more sharing. We have to be more careful with our environment, with the way we treat the world, the way we treat the animals and critters and trees and things in the world. That in general, we humans have a lot of potential, but we need to clean our act up and stop being so self-centered and destructive and that sort of thing. And I think you'd find that almost everybody on the planet agrees that we have a lot more potential than we have realized at this point. We've got a lot of negativity and a lot of, trash in there, mostly the fear-based stuff, and that's holding us back, that we could be so much better. Everybody could have the basics, that's that are necessary for life. Everybody could have opportunity for going up. Everybody could do this if we all stop fighting and scrapping and work together. So I think everyone sees the idea, yeah, we could do better, but how? How are we all going to do that? How are we going to make this transition? That's what we don't know. But everybody has the will, the desire. I shouldn't say everybody. Not everybody doesn't, but the large majority have the will to do it, to start down that path, to have a more positive connection with other people, to not have, greed and self-centeredness be the dominant ethic of our culture. It'd be so much better if it could be caring, and sharing be the dominant ethic of our culture. Sustainability, a dominant ethic of our culture. But how do we make that shift? Well, that's sort of what we're here to talk about. It's attitudinal shifts. It's a shift in getting rid of fear. It's a shift in getting rid of beliefs. And that's what MBT is all about, is how do we make that shift? And why do we make it? And where does it take us? And how do we get there? That's the point. So, yes, Nathan, social media is the key. Social media is not only just a good idea, but it is the idea that can solve the problem. Now, not necessarily just as social media is right now, today. We got to develop this a little more. We, people who are so used to being provincial, have to learn to connect. So that's kind of what this is about. That's what the MBT movement is really about. How do we do that? Why do we do that? What's the underlying ethic or concept or worldview or sense of the nature of reality that leads us toward that direction of being a cooperative, caring species as opposed to a competitive, self-centered species. Not that there's anything wrong with competition. It's just that that competition can be overdone and be to the point that we want to run over each other to get what we want. And that's really not the value of competition. The value of competition is that we egg each other on, we challenge each other. That's the good part of competition. Not that we beat each other so much. So anyway, that's about social media and kind of the place that social media is going to play in this. It's going to play the major role. That is the mechanism. So if we humanity are ever going to get to this kinder, gentler place, it's going to be through the technology of social media allowing us to care, bringing us to the point that we care about each other in a fundamental way, that we become that family, even though we're 8 billion strong. We care. And that is the same philosophy or the same endpoint of the philosophy that MBT has. And MBT provides the scientific structure underneath that caring as to why is that a good idea? How does science work with that? Does science contrary to that? Is science, kind of soulless and sterile, or does it become a part of that? Because science is a big part of our life. And what about politics and law and all those other things? How do they all figure in, and how do we all connect? And what's the underlying ethic, the underlying philosophy that brings us together? And that's really where MBT is trying to throw some positive light into the world, try to get that discussion going and open, and people considering ideas, how to move in that direction. So that's what we're all about, is using social media to help share ideas of being positive and connecting positively with each other. And everything has to start someplace. So here's where we're starting now. So it's not a major idea yet. And it doesn't have to ever turn out to be MBT. That's not the point. If that morphs into something else that's better, then that's good. That's better. So we just begin bringing a starting place to the game, a way of looking at the world and understanding ourselves in it. Why am I here? What's the point? What do I in reality have to give each other? The big questions. What's the point of life? And MBT brings those kinds of answers to the questions, which gives us a kind of a unifying viewpoint.
That lends me to think about when I was growing up as a kid. I loved technology. I was really into computers and the internet and all of that. I didn't really question that for a long time. I was just into it quite a bit. Then I got older and kind of grew up a bit and started to question some of that, like, oh, technology, can be used for bad things too. Is technology a net good for society, or is it, is it a net bad? And I kind of had a bit of an existential crisis there because I had, put a lot of my time and effort into it. So basically, I've kind of come to realize through MBT that really, computers, the internet, and now social media has kind of unlocked the potential to be a big driving force for positive changes in consciousness evolution. So yeah, it's just a matter of how we as individuals kind of use that technology as a tool. But I guess that kind of lends us into thinking, well, how can each one of us contribute, using social media to the development towards a better world, Tom?
Well, I think the idea is that we just share and we care. In other words, we use that social media to share something positive, something of value, not to see how we can get other people to agree with us. That's not really the whole point here. The whole point is to float ideas and ways of looking at the world and let other people, embrace those or come up with alternatives. that's fine too. You know, it's an open-ended thing. It's not that here's the answer, everybody memorize this, you know, there'll be a test at the end. You know, that will never work. You know, nobody has all the answers for everybody. It doesn't work that way. So you offer a basic framework in which people can make sense out of themselves and their lives. Here's a framework in which you as a human exist. Here's some of the potentials you have. Here's why you're here. Here's your purpose. This is what we're doing here. So you get a framework, and that framework is totally inclusive. It doesn't leave anybody out. You know, there's nobody that falls outside the framework. It includes everyone. And then, you know, if you have a framework that we share certain basic attitudes, like fear is not a good thing. Fear is a thing to be avoided. It's something to get rid of. Caring and sharing and helping is a good thing. It's a thing that we should do more of. So these are just basic, you know, attitudinal things. And if we can just get a set of these kinds of attitudes and ways of interacting that people say, yeah, that's positive, that's good. Yeah, there's no dogma, there's no pass the plate, you know, for money. There's no, you know, you have to learn these things, you have to agree to these issues, and we all have to swear that we'll, you know, swear to the spaghetti monster that we'll be true believers. You know, there's none of that. It's just these are some good ideas that'll help people get along. Completely open everyone. When I say everyone, I mean of all sorts of persuasions. If you're an atheist, it's good for you. If you're a theist, it's good for you. You know, there's nobody that it doesn't work for. So if we can generate this kind of inclusive model, or we can share it, we've generated it already. MBT is that model. But if we can share that model and people start sharing it and then sharing it more, and the people they share it to share it, then instead of having to wait for another millennia before we step into a kinder, gentler future, we can step into it in the next decade. It'll only take us 10 years to change this world from a place that's kind of nasty. Everybody's self-centered, greedy, and it's all about me and don't care about anybody else. Except, of course, my family. You know, I care about them, but everybody else, you know, they're competitors of mine, and I want to take advantage of them. Find out a way to get their money into my bank account. You know, if we change those attitudes, then I think the whole thing will just pick up and go, because it's time for this. We're at that point in our history where, like I say, it's a possibility. It's ready. If we can just get it to enough people involved in this positive thinking to make a difference, it'll grow all by itself. It's not something you're going to have to preach and teach. It's just natural life. It's optimizing relationships and connections and energies and being nice to people rather than being rude to people. It's not a difficult set of concepts. So I think it will flow very naturally, but you have to share. People have to see it, and they have to find the framework in which they can find themselves. In other words, here's a philosophical framework, and there's me. Here's how I fit into that framework, and that feels good. I like fitting into this framework that way. If people can see that, then I think we're on track to actually optimize ourselves in a decade. If people can't see that, if it's, no, I don't want to optimize it all together. I just want to optimize it for me. That's all. You know, I want all the marbles. When it's all said and done, I want to have all the marbles in the world. That's my game. All the power, all the control, because control, power, and force, you know, that's what makes things happen around here. That's the realm. That's the kind of the coin of the realm is control, power, and force. Well, we need to change that. That's the ethic now. That's the idea that has captured almost all of humanity. Control, power, force is the coin of the realm. That's how you get what you want, because you have control, you have power, you can force things. That's how we think. That's how our nations think. That's how individuals think. That's how our bosses think. That's how we think. And that's a big part of the problem. It's that attitude is self-destructive. It's negative. It doesn't go anywhere. It creates terrible relationships, makes everybody dislike everybody, makes everybody distrust everybody, you see? So how do we change this basic way of looking at the world? Well, MBT comes up with a framework of how the world works. What is reality? Reality is basically consciousness. Consciousness is fundamental. MBT can derive physics from consciousness. There's consciousness, and oh, I can derive the logic of consciousness, pops out physics. Isn't that handy? You know, and it can derive metaphysics, ontology, epistemology, cosmology, all those things pop out of this concept of consciousness. So we start with consciousness and derive everything else logically. And it turns out that love is the underlying ethic, the underlying attitude toward positive interaction between all humanity and all the rest of the world. You know, there's other stuff in the world besides humans. So anyway, it's a very simple set of ideas. Now we just need to get more people thinking that love is the answer and sharing and caring are good attitudes. Then there are people who think control, power, and force are the way to, you know, to get along in this world. And if you don't have control or power or force, then you're a no one. Everybody walks on you. So you have to go out there and somehow figure out how to get some of that control, power, and force so that you can get in the game and elbow your way into the trough and grab up what you want. You see, we just have to replace one set of attitudes with another. And the way to do that is talking to people. And the way to do that is social media. So it's not like there's 100 different ways to get there. There's really only one. And that's social media. That's connecting to the rest of the world, you know, face to face, talk to talk, keyboard to keyboard. That's how we do that. So there isn't any other way to get there. Otherwise, we stay isolated in our little bubbles. Okay, these people figured it out, and those people over there figured it out, but the whole world, the mainstream, isn't going to go there. It won't go mainstream until most of the people, till at least I shouldn't say most, it doesn't even have to be half, 10, 20% of the people got positive, probably turn everything else around. Because everybody would see how much happier and how much more smiley, how much more successful those people are than the control, power, force people. So that's what we're about. And we are struggling, you know, the three of us here are struggling to find a ways to do that. You know, how do we get people to change their attitudes? Well, you don't do it by lecturing them. You can't lecture people. People have to change themselves from the inside out. Can't do it by just writing a book and explaining it, because that's all intellectual. People have to change at a deeper level. It's not how we don't want people to act better. That'd be nice. That's not the point. It's not that we want everybody to act like they're kind. We want everybody to be kind. So acting is civilizing. Okay, we all act nicer. That would be good. But we have to be nicer. And that's a lot harder than acting nicer. And how do you do that? Well, one person at a time, talking to another person, interacting, sharing, caring, you know, helping. That's how you be that. We create that through positivity. That's being positive. The control, power, force is negative. It's all about me. How can I get more of the pie for myself as opposed to sharing it with anybody else? You know, control, power, force is all about self. That's all self-centered. My control, my power, my force for me. And that is the world we live in. We need to change that. And social media is the only thing that can do it. Nothing else can do it, because people change themselves through interactions with other people. You don't change yourself because you read a book. You don't change yourself because somebody lectures you. You change yourself because of your interactions with other people. So now, how do we go out there into the world with social media and help create these more positive interactions so that this world can grow up. So within a decade or two, we're living in a kinder, gentler society that's more caring about everybody. We're inclusive. We value diversity. We value everyone. Everyone on the planet has something to contribute. So that's where we're going. Now, of course, we may never get there. There may always be those few people on the sidelines that are, bad apples. I'm not saying, this is not everything will be rosy and they all live happily ever after. There's always going to be struggle. There's always going to be those that, want to control and want power and so on. It's just that we want to be more of us be caring and sharing, because that will define the basic ethic of our sociology, the ethic of our ways that we interact with each other. Sure, there's always going to be sideliners that are troublemakers, but that's not a problem. That's easy to deal with. What's hard to deal with is those troublemakers are the 90%. The people who want to live nicely with each other is the 10%. That's the problem. So again, we've got an attitude now that people would want change. They see there has to be a better way. All right, we've done this control power force thing for, almost 200,000 years, since Homo sapiens first existed as Homo sapiens. And it has never taken us very far. It's just self-destructive. You'll build up little pockets of power and then they'll disintegrate. You'll build up another pocket of power and then those two pockets of power will fight with each other. And, it's just been going on. The warlord mentality of social structure, that's what we've been living by, kind of the warlord social structure. And we're at the point now that I think everybody looks at the history books and looks at each other and says, that doesn't work. We just can't keep doing that over and over again. 200,000 years is enough, guys. Let's find a better way to live with each other. And it's so obvious, but we just have to do it. And it's done one conversation at a time, one interaction at a time. And it's done today. It can only be done today because we have social media. So then it's like, well, let's get out there and see if we can't work this social media thing to help make this happen. So that's kind of where we are and what we're doing and what we're about. We have the structure in which we can create a science. The science of consciousness can then create a subset of itself that is physics and chemistry and biology. Science then comes out of consciousness. Also, we have a science of that's the science of the objective, right? Science of the objective world falls out of this. But also there's a whole brand new science of the subjective world falls out of this. If you understand the science of the subjective world, you understand why your life is a struggle, why you're unhappy, why, you and your relationships are always struggling and having problems and they come and go and that sort of thing. Once you understand the subjective side of life is also a science, follows rules. It has a philosophy, it follows rules. Just like the physical world, the objective world has a philosophy, natural philosophy it was called. It's got a natural philosophy that it falls on both the subjective and objective sides. And once you understand that, life becomes so simple. You understand how everything works and why it works that way, both the objective and the subjective. Nothing's mysterious anymore. Everything makes sense. But that means that everything isn't flat. Everything becomes more beautiful, more connected, more lovely. So these are some of the ideas that we'd like to spread. And if people don't like them, that's fine. We'll let them help us come up with better ideas, better ways of thinking about it, better ways of expressing these things. That's good too. So again, we're not here to sell a set of ideas. We're here with ideas that we want to share. And in as much as people are willing to reach out and take them and share them, fine. In as much as they want to change them, that's fine too. Let's just move on toward where we know we have to go, which is away from control, power, force, and toward we care about each other fundamentally at a deep level, not just acting like we care, but we really truly do care about each other fundamentally, as opposed we fundamentally only really care about ourselves and ours. That's the transition in a nutshell that we need to make from fear to love. So, guys, how do we do that? You're young guys. You guys know about social media. So how do we get this social media thing harnessed to help pull this cart in that direction?
Yeah, so we've actually started an initiative within the MBT volunteers called the Social Media Nudging Group. And essentially it's a group of us that, want to go out there and share what MBT is all about using social media. So I know, Tom, you put in a lot of work and effort into spreading, my big toe theory of everything. And but you're only one person, you can only do so much. So, there's some of us that have, learned and grown a lot from MBT and want to help others learn about it too. And so that's kind of what this initiative is all about, is just going out there as individuals, out there in various social media forums, communities, chat rooms, Discord, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, and anything else that pops up in the future. I think we're just starting a TikTok now, just to get out there and share, the positive message that My Big Toe brings to the table. And yeah, we've been ramping that up over the last several months. We've got a couple dozen people involved so far, and it's open to anyone to join. If you want to learn, feel free to join the MBT volunteers. We can help you get set up and onboarded. There's participation is completely voluntary, up to your comfort level, however much time or availability you have. But kind of the idea is that we kind of get together and share with each other the best ways to communicate and share MBT, because it can be a bit of a challenging topic to communicate effectively with others. And there's all kinds of topics, really. So all of us getting together and organizing to try and share different approaches to sharing MBT in various ways, and just kind of the low level details of where and how and when. Yeah, it's just a great opportunity for us to get together.
Yeah, I think it's those details that matter a whole lot. You see, MBT's now been around for about 20 years. It's not like it was just born yesterday, and it's got this huge, YouTube library of thousands of hours. But that's not helpful to most people. If you say, well, look, over here's 1,000 hours, go read about it or go listen to it. Well, it's just not helpful. So it's the key thing is, how do you take all those golden nuggets that are buried in those thousands of hours and all the possibility, all the discussion, all the understanding, and all the thought that's been into all that. How do you break that down into bite-sized pieces? And how do you dress it up into the right flavors and the right spices and send it to people so that it connects with people all over? Because every group of people would really do better if it was presented to them in a little different way. And this other group of people, well, they'd actually do better if it's presented to them in this other way. So the big challenge is, how do you get this big, massive pile of information that's been accumulated and disperse it out to the world in bite-sized pieces that people can digest and ask for more? Because you see, when it's a theory of everything, it's so broad and so deep that you can't just say, oh, here's a wad of it, here's a pile of it, because people get buried in that pile. You have to let everybody just take the bite that they're ready to take a bite of, with the idea that after they digest that bite, they'll say, oh, that works pretty good. That's interesting. What about this? And now they're ready for the next bite. And now what about this? And they're ready for the next bite. So that's the problem. There's this whole bunch of information, but you can't just dump that and say, here, world, it's in here someplace, go figure it out. Well, maybe over the next few millennia that'll happen, but we'd like it to be a kinder, gentler place sooner rather than later. So we really need to get it and put it into forms and chunks and pieces and different kinds of colors and smells and textures to suit lots and lots of people out there, and just enough to get them interested in the next bite. And if they're not interested in the next bite, that's okay too. No, it's not a problem. Again, we're not trying to make people believers about anything. We just want to give them something to start working on, to change attitudes, a structure within which to find themselves, a very general structure. So that's the big mystery to me. See, I'm an old guy. You guys are young. You see the world a little differently. I see this big pile of information, and I understand it very well because I created most of it, but I don't have the clue how to put it out into the right, like I say, colors and textures and tastes and sizes and so on, such that it's digestible to the world in just one bite at a time, not give a whole thing to the world so the world suddenly, becomes enlightened. That's not going to happen. It doesn't work that way. Learning is one little step at a time. So how do we do that? How do we find these tens of thousands of different little groups of people and give them just the right mix to entice them to try to learn more, or to try to take what we give them and change it and fix it and make it suit them better? That's okay too. We just really want people to start thinking about it and interacting with it. It's not a matter of having to agree with this. That's not the point. If you feed this stuff to people and they look at it and they say, yeah, that's interesting, but it's all wrong here, this is the way we need to do it. And I say, great, go with that, go with that. It's not that, oh no, well then you're wrong if you don't go with, with the MBT way. That's not it at all. Just go with it, because if you have the right attitude and you're headed toward caring, sharing, if you're headed toward positive things, everybody will get to the same place eventually. And there's probably 1,000 different roads that'll take you there. And in the beginning, everybody will argue about which road to take. Oh, no, that's the wrong road. This is the right road. But it doesn't really matter. There's thousands of different roads that'll take you there. And any road that you're on can take you there if what you're trying to do is be positive, share, and care. It'll all take you to the right place. So that's why I say, if somebody says, oh, this stuff you gave me that's wrong, here's a better way. Sure, thank you. Go do that better way. Because it's just your own viewpoint of how to look at it and how to proceed. And that's good, because there's going to be other people like you, and that'll be good for them too. So this is not something that we're going to have purity tests to see whether everybody's doing the MBT thing. It's just trying to get people thinking about a new way of existing and being and sharing. And put it in your own terms, in your own words, in your own metaphors. You don't have to use mine. It'll all end up getting us to the same place. So that's kind of the overview. But I have no idea, because I'm not a prodigy of social media. I didn't grow up in that. It's kind of not my thing. I can see it, and I see what it's doing. I can see the potential it has. But how to make those connections to the vast audience out there that is hugely diverse, in age and interest and education, a hugely diverse audience. How do we get to them, to get them to think just one tiny step in front of where they are now, get from control, power, force to caring and sharing and compassion? How do we get that traction into the rest of the world? So that's kind of the big task I gave to you guys. Help me figure that out. How do we use this social media to do that? And you've been doing it, and you're amassing a group of volunteers to help come up with different ways to work this problem, and different platforms and different processes. And I think the more people we get involved in doing that, the more leaders we have in that. It's not just like, you two are the leaders and everybody else will take your advice. Everybody that wants to come here can be a leader. Let them come be a leader of their area and their group and their thing. And we welcome as many as possible. Spread in as many ways as possible. Use the metaphors of your choice. They don't have to be MBT metaphors. So that's the idea. Let's spread this to the world and make this a better place sooner rather than have to wait until it just naturally happens on its own anyway, which it will, but that may be a millennia from now. I'd like my grandkids and my grandkids to grow up in a place that had really actualized much of its potential rather than most of its positive potential still lying on the floor unactualized, which is the way it is now. Humanity has huge potential to do marvelous things and treat each other very well. Most of that positive potential is just lying on the floor. It's there, but we're not actualizing it. The only part we're actualizing it is control, power, force, ethic. That part we're really good at. What's in it for me and how can I get that out for me? What kind of education, what kind of skills do I need so I can make sure I can get what I want out of the pie? So we have this self-centered viewpoint, and we're pretty good at working that. We're not so good at how can I help? How can I be part of the solution, not part of the problem? That we're not so good at because we don't really understand the problem. Well, the MBT is a structure that will help you understand the problem, who you are, what you are, and how things work.
Yeah, I think a key part of it is really trying to not, we're not trying to proselytize or sell anything, or I don't want to turn this into a religion or something like that. It's just sharing information and letting people come to their own conclusions based on that, and don't believe or disbelieve any of the kind of approach. So it's an interesting way of doing it, because that's not typically what you see out there when you see advertisements or anything. It's all either selling or believe in this is the way it is,
right?
And yeah,
no,
so that's
matter of fact, one of the basic mottos of MBT is believe nothing. Belief is the problem. You don't want to believe anything. Get rid of your beliefs. And another one of our little mottos is, if it's not your experience, it's not your truth. So if you don't have an experience in this way, well, then it's not your truth. And it can't be your truth till you do have your experience. So go do it your own way until you find your own truth. Yeah. I'm the only guy I know of at the end of my lecture. I tell everybody in the hall that's been listening to me for a couple of days, don't believe a word that I've told you. It won't help you to believe it. You can believe it. You can memorize the book and, believe all of it, but that won't help. It won't help you grow up any. You got to be it. It has to come out of you. You have to have it from the inside out. And disbelieving it is the same problem as believing it. Disbelief and a belief are really the same thing. They're both beliefs. Belief in value or belief in no value. It's just belief. It has to be your experience, or it's not your truth. So I don't want to walk over anybody's free will. I don't want to walk over anybody else's, attitudes or beliefs. I'm just sharing, and yeah, nothing to sell here at all. Belief is the problem, not the solution. And I'm saying, look at life and see ways that you can become less of the problem and more of the solution. Whatever words you'd like to put that into, however you'd like to describe that, that should be the point of view you have. Now, you can pick up the MBT form, or what do we call it, structure, and many people find that very useful because it's not a do this, don't do that kind of a thing. But if not, that's okay too. You're still on our side. You don't have to join us and to kind of believe anything. Let's just make the world a better place together, no matter what we believe. That's irrelevant. Belief is not helpful.
Yeah, this conversation has been a very helpful and powerful for me context for like how one person with a little internet connection, one small part of the world, can be part of something much larger, not just part of the MBT community, but part of this global initiative that those who are committed to making the world a better place can do one small part with every, like you said earlier, Tom, every interaction one to one. There's opportunity there to care, to share, to really be an example, just who we are, be an example of how positivity is the way, and to be part of the solution. There's many different ways, and one of those ways to join your group, Michael, your nudging team. And if people are interested and say, I want to be part of the solution, I don't know where to start, try out the nudging team. You know, there's no hard commitments here. Like once you join, you have to stay or something. It's like just jump in and play and see what it's like to be part of a group that has an organized structure around here's how we engage, here's some resources, here's some ideas, here's a social media platform that people are often already interacting on anyway. So we can share our light there and then that might inspire someone to find their own way of doing it. Maybe they go along from the nudging team and they start doing their own thing that's sharing positivity, sharing light with MBT metaphors or without, like you were saying, Tom. And it's just a really awesome conversation today to help people see there's so many opportunities just by virtue of being a human being who is plugged into the internet. And wow, we can make a difference in every little interaction. You know, add up thousands and millions of people that have that mindset of I'll do the little bit that I can to make the world a better place. Suddenly you have a tsunami wave of like, positive change because people are taking really seriously and in a fun way, just helping, caring,
Yeah,
being part of the solution.
yeah, yeah. And it's not only that people can contribute just by every little thing. That's the only way really you can contribute. There is nothing you're going to go out and do that's going to go out and change the whole world. It's not like, well, I'm just a little person. I can't go out and change anything. Well, that's not how we make changes. You don't make changes by somebody going out and changing the world. There's no way to change the way people feel and the way they think and the attitudes they have. There's no monster change function that makes that happen. It has to change, as you say, just one person at a time, one person thinking about who they are and what they are and what is positive and negative and where are the, what is part of the problem? How do you define the problem and what is it? And how is it that you're part of it, that you keep feeding that problem? And how is it that you can be, not part of the problem and be part of the solution? And just one person thinking about that and then talking to another person. That is the way it has to be done. Not only that's the way it can be done, but that's the way it has to be done. There is no other way to do it other than people changing their own mind themselves. When we think and feel differently, we'll be differently. And that is all it takes. It's just enough people, maybe 10% of the population turns positive instead of negative, and that may be all it takes. But it's done at the individual level. It's not, oh, we have to wait for some big institution to grow up and tell us all how to think. That's just more of the same. Telling people how to think is part of the problem. It's not part of the solution. Letting everybody think in their own way, but think positively, caringly. That's the solution. So there is no big, overarching, powerful solution that you're just so little that you can't really be a part of that. That doesn't exist. All of those big all those big, pushing the solution is dysfunctional. That's what the problem is. We push stuff onto people. We want people to believe this or that or act this way or that way. That's the problem. It has to happen just down at the grassroots individual level, and that individual levels in their own mind, seeing reality in a little different way, that they realize that they need to be more part of the solution and less part of the problem. And how can they do it? In just some little way. That's what it takes. And you add up billions and billions of these little choices and decisions, and you have a success. So all success must take place at the individual level. Not only can success take place at the individual level, it's the only place it can take place. So yes, it's not like, well, I'm small and can't do anything. No, you are exactly the person who can do what needs to be done for you. And your sharing with others then adds another, and so on. So the result, the realization of this kinder, gentler world has to be done one mind at a time. And how do you connect with a lot of people? Social media. That's the connection. But it's the person to person. It's not just intellectual ideas that matter. They have to change who they are. It's not just what they think. You can sit down and think, okay, I'm thinking very positive. That should be my contribution. Thinking positive is nice, but you need to be positive. Be positive in all the ways you interact with other people, with your friends, with your family, with your boss, with your coworkers, everybody in your life. How do you interact with them? Is it about you and, how can I manipulate all this situation to come out the way I want? Well, then you're part of the problem. Or is it, how can I be helpful? How can I contribute to this in some way? Now you're part of the solution. So just that's where the traction is. It's right at the individual choice level of everyday choices. If you can change that, then you will be an effective changer of the entire world if you can just change yourself. The best way to save the world is to save yourself. Best way to change the world is to change yourself. And it can't be changed any other way. Anything else is just more of the problem. So I know, let's come up with a philosophy that everybody needs to do this. Well, that isn't going to work. It's just more control, power, and force. You're not doing it right. Let's kick this person, make them get in line and do it right. That's the old control, power, force, and it won't work. It just leads to another failed situation. So, yeah, it's not only fantastic that every little individual person out there can do something, but that's the only way it can be done. Only if they do something will this work. So that's why we're here at social media. And this is the path. If we can succeed, we can cut this time of our evolution to a more positive space, a more positive world. We can cut it down tremendously. We can figure out clever ways of helping other people see the difference between what's part of the problem and what's part of the solution, and how they fit into that, how they're playing to the problem, and how they can play to the solution and change themselves. Just that's it. Even in one tiny way, even if there's 100 ways they could do that, if they just do it in one way, that'll be a massive contribution. So how do you help people make these changes? It's not how do you make people make these changes. That's the wrong thinking. That's old think. You don't make people do anything. How do you help them come to it on their own, in their own way, with their own metaphors, within their own culture, within their own belief systems, even? Because if you can get them to take one step, that'll improve their lives enough that they'll want to take the next. So that's the challenge, I guess, is we have MBT, we have the ideas, we have the structure, we've defined objective and subjective science, so we've got the whole thing going, but it doesn't make any difference. That's nice, but it's all sticking in somebody's intellect, and it's not really doing any good unless it actually helps people be better in some way, in some social interactive way, helps them be better. So that's what we're about.
Yeah, one thing I've noticed, particularly with social media, is that because there's that physical separation over the internet, I find that some people may think that there aren't any repercussions to the choices that they make or behavior online, or that coming from an MBT perspective, that it's nothing further from the case, because every choice you make is coming from your intent as consciousness, right? So there are repercussions. Yeah. So that's I think a key message to bring out online as well, is, hey, your behavior online really does matter, and there are repercussions, even though there is that physical separation. So I just thought that was an interesting.
Yeah, there's a big difference between acting nice and being nice, but there's also a big difference between being not nice and getting away with it, and being not nice and being caught, and just not being not nice. A lot of people think, well, as long as I don't get caught, or don't have to pay a price for it, or don't have to, there's nothing going to come back and get me. Well, I can be mean, I can be rude, I can say things to people that are unpleasant, I can do all those things because it'll never slap back at me. It'll never come back and get me. It won't bite me. Well, that's that attitude that says it's all about me. I don't care about other people and what it does to other people. It's all about me. So, yes, that's the idea of a person who feels very small, and it makes them feel better to put other people down, to be rude or to say something nasty to somebody else. They're so weak in their own mind that makes them feel somehow bigger and tougher and stronger by putting somebody else down. There's a lot of that on the internet where people are not held accountable because they're using fake names and fake places, and nobody can hold them accountable, so they can be just as nasty and mean as they wish, and ha ha ha, can't get me. But that's that self-centered attitude we're talking about. It's all about them. Yes, what they do and the harm they cause is all about them. That is them. They are, unpleasant, nasty, low quality people. And when they do things like that, whether they have to be held accountable or not, it's not the point. Is that they do it is a demonstration of their quality, of their consciousness. And if you practice low quality of consciousness stuff like trash talking, then that will drag you down to an overall lower quality of consciousness. It's, yeah. So every choice you make, anywhere, in a dream, in a daydream, any place, any choice you make is a choice that will help you evolve toward love or evolve toward fear. So, evolving toward love is the solution side, and evolving toward fear is the problem side. So you have to just look at every individual choice. There may not be any penalty for making a bad choice that you can think of on the outside world, but there is a penalty on the inside world. As you make poor choices, it makes it easier to make more poor choices, which makes it easier to make more poor choices. And pretty soon you become an unhappy, cranky, depressed individual for making those poor choices, because you're sliding down that side into negativity, into belief, into fear, and that will ruin your life. So every little choice you make, like I say, in a daydream, a night dream, online, anywhere, any choice you make that does anything affects who you are. It's all a sum. You are the sum of all the choices you've ever made. And if you make negative choices just because you can get away with them, well, that hurts you. You think you're getting away with them, but it's actually dragging you into a space of existence that will be less nice, less friendly, less supportive. Your relationships won't be as good. The job you get's not going to be as good. Just everything in your life will be less because of those poor choices. Everything shrinks. Everything's sliding down the negative side of the scale. Once you start making positive choices and caring choices, then everything starts ticking up the other way. So yes, it's a good point, Michael. It's not just whether the outside world catches you or not. It's whatever you think, even whether you say it or don't say it. It's whatever your intention is. If that intention is negative, well, that helps you grow toward the negative. If that intention's positive, it helps you grow toward the positive. That's what we do. We evolve the quality of our consciousness by making choices. And we are the sum of all those choices. That's who we are. And if you want to become part of the solution, then you have to start making positive choices that are toward becoming the solution. If we all do that, then we'll live in a much better world. Yeah, very good point. Not just what you can get caught with, or what you can get away with, or whether or not somebody catches your lies or not. That's not what makes a lie bad. It's not that lie's a bad thing because you got caught. That lie's a bad thing because it's a lie. It's deceiving. It's self-centered. It's negative. It's part of the problem. You then are part of the problem. You need to, as much as you can, shift yourself from part of the problem into part of the solution. So that's what it's about.
It's a great note to end on too, because as we're coming to a natural conclusion here, it's like you said, Tom. It's the intention that then becomes sort of the reinforcer of that path, and it makes a lot of sense to me around the quote I've heard, and I've liked it, and it adds another layer to appreciating it. And that quote is, "Virtue is its own reward." It's like, oh,
Mm.
when we start really intending and being in that more positive direction, whether people see it or not, or there's, whatever, like we get to experience our own positive evolution, and that feels better. It is better for us. Our lives get better, it benefits people around us that we love. And I really appreciate that question, Michael, because it's like, like online, offline, wherever we are interacting, like those choices matter. And like we get to evolve or de-evolve. That's really up to us. And what a great opportunity, because like we've been saying, we're all interacting all the time, online, offline. So to be intentional about those interactions and to be love and be caring and to see how we can help support, whether it's officially as an MBT nudger on this team or just people feeling inspired from this call and just going out and doing it. Those are success, just for people to see that their lives matter, their choices matter, makes a difference. So thank you both for just this inspiring conversation for myself. I came to this conversation be like, oh, well, we'll have an inspiring conversation for others. And here I am like, wow, like I'm feeling that right now. Like it matters the way we interact. So I thank you both for that, and would invite any sort of final comments from either of you before we wrap up here.
Oh, one final comment that I will make is that really appreciate Nathan, that you and Michael coming, and Michael, for you trying to get together this group, this nudging group, and figure out how, ways. How do we go about it? What do we do? How do we do it? How do we reach the various groups of people, various attitudes? And there's nobody off the list. It's everybody out there is part of who we'd like to reach. And how do we do that? And who are the best people for doing this and the best people for doing that? I see there's this huge bunch of organization and thinking and choices that have to be made to actually put this all together. And I'm not the person to do that. That's something I leave to others. So I'm not, that's not my expertise. So I leave it to you guys, and I'm really pleased that you guys show up and are here and willing to take it on and work with it and pull more people into it and get this thing energized. You and TT and all the rest of the volunteers, and it's just in the beginning. We're just starting this ball rolling. It's like we're a bunch of just a couple of people. We've got this big ball and we're trying to roll it up a hill. Push it just a little bit more up the hill. And if we get enough people and we get it to the top of the hill, it'll roll all by itself. We won't have to push it anymore. If we can get it just up high enough where we can make it over that minimum number you need to have before things starts catching on, then the ball will just roll all by itself. But so now we need more people to help push it up that hill, get it going, and more clever ways to push it up the hill with to reach more people and reach them in ways that makes more of a difference. And that's a big task, but I feel good that somebody's working it. So thank you, Michael, for being the kind of the lead of that. Thank you, Nathan, for helping and being a part of it and putting this video together. And I appreciate both of you very much, and all of the people that's on your team.
Yes, and thank you, Tom and Nathan, for getting together to give us the opportunity to talk about this and social media in general. Yeah, I've learned a lot too, even just being here today. And yeah, I feel like we're really building momentum with the social media nudging group, and I'm looking forward to more people joining. I'm sure we'll put the details on how to do just that in the video description below. So yeah, if you're interested, please reach out. And yeah, there's no commitments, there's no expectations. It's just contribute what you feel like contributing. So yeah, thank you very much.